T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to Joe Sports Channel. You can follow me on Joe the Fighting Joe on Instagram. You can follow me on Taker Devil One hashtag Joe Sports Channel. Ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls of all ages, to all the fantastic and wonderful, beautiful Boonie believers, it is May 12th, 2023, 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time, and I hope each and every one of you guys all out there, and especially on the West Coast, are having a fantastic Friday evening. Ladies and gentlemen, as you see the title, Emmy award-winning broadcaster, we got to welcome him back. But before we welcome him back, let's welcome the co-host of the Joe Sports Channel, Tino D'Antonio, and the one and only, give it a round of applause, Bob Rathbun, the Atlanta Hawks, voice of the Hawks. Good evening, folks.
Joe, thank you. Tino, it's great to be with you guys.
Thank you, Bob. Great to have you here.
Appreciate it.
It has been over 2 years, Bob, and it's an honor to welcome you back on the panel. Thank you for taking time into your schedule to be with us tonight on this wonderful journey and show together. How are things with you?
Outstanding. I wish the Hawks were still playing, but that's okay. We had a good run, gave the Celtics a scare, and now Philadelphia's giving them a scare.
They are. Game 7 is in a couple of days. Bob, we have some wonderful questions, and I first off want to say, looking back on that Monday night, December 5th, 2022, how did you feel about returning back to your announcing position after having your medical emergency during the Atlanta Hawks and Oklahoma Thunder matchup? What went exactly that night? That was a very scary night for you, I bet.
I don't recall that. No, I'm just kidding. It was the strangest thing. I don't know if you fellows have ever heard of the medical term syncope, but that's what I was diagnosed with. And it is nothing more than 2 or 3 events that happen simultaneously that cause a person to pass out. I had never heard of that in my life. And I've met so many people like, oh, yeah, that happened to me. That happened to my wife. My neighbor had that. And it was that night I was not feeling well and basically was dehydrated. And that was what they thought, that the adrenaline rush of going on the air, not feeling well, being dehydrated. They told me my magnesium level was off or something. And that's what triggered it. And as soon as I got some fluids at the arena, I was fine. But they did check me out from head to toe. So I told the Hawks and I told my bosses at Bally Sports, I said, I am the most fit broadcaster you have because I've got the papers to prove it.
No, when I saw that, my heart went to you and your family.
I have not, Joe. Thank you, but I have not seen the video, nor will I. I am not going to watch it.
I've seen it once or twice, and I will not watch it again.
It freaked everybody out, and it really freaked out Dominique Wilkins, my partner. I mean, he didn't know what was going on. Well, first, he thought I was kidding him. He looked over and did a double take, and But hey, listen, if you're gonna, first of all, this bit of career advice: don't pass out on TV because they have a tendency to record it and loop it, and play it over and over and over. And the second thing is, if you are going to pass out, make sure you do it by the Hawks bench, because then you've got the training staff and the EMT right there 2 feet away, and they're right on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny you say that, because I seen rumors. Bob had a heart attack. Bob had a stroke. I didn't know exactly what was going on. So I wanted to ask that question on tonight's show exactly. So to know 100% what exactly went from you. And I'm really, really happy that you were stronger than ever before. You look better than before. And God bless you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a complete freak thing that happened. And I was so thankful to have it happen when it did. I was thinking later that, oh my gosh, what if I was driving?
Absolutely.
A million things go through your mind, right? And
absolutely.
All I could think of was, oh man, I was so lucky to have it happen when it did not scare the pants off everybody, because nobody knew what happened. And when they were 15 minutes before the tip, and they're wheeling me off a stretcher, and everybody's going, ugh! But it turned great. Now, here's a funny kicker to the story. My partner is the Hall of Famer Dominique Wilkins, and we're getting ready to play the Celtics in the playoffs, and he comes down with a terrible cold. Okay, just awful. Head, chest, everything. Felt terrible. Took some medication over the counter, Theraflu and some other things. Well, he's diabetic, and it interacted negatively with his diabetes medication. He's coming to the game 3, and his blood pressure skyrockets. So they met him. They took his blood pressure and said, "No, you're not doing this game. You're going to go get checked out." So they took it back to the same place they took me, in the arena at the EMT stand back in the back. And I did my pregame show hit, and then I went back looking for him, but he had just left to go to the hospital, checked out fine. They got it regulated, and he's fine. So I said to the EMTs and the doctors and nurses that were back there, I said, okay, here's the deal. No more broadcasters are coming back here this year. I've been here. Nick's been here. That's it. Nobody.
I love that response. That's the best response I've ever heard on the show.
Bob, I got a question for you. When you first learned that you were being selected as being the voice, the announcer of the Atlanta Hawks play-by-play action, what were some of the thoughts that were going through your mind when becoming that voice? Like, was there any prep that you must have been in some thought about doing this and taking it a step further?
Yeah, I had gotten my feet wet in the NBA when I worked in Virginia before I came to Atlanta. And I was sort of the fill-in guy for a cable outfit called Home Team Sports. It's now Masson. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's based in D.C. And I got a chance to do Bullets games. They were the Bullets then, now the Wizards, and the Baltimore Orioles and stuff. So I had gotten an introduction into doing NBA games. I had a chance to do Jordan in Chicago at the stadium, and I had a chance to do a Laker preseason game with Magic Johnson and that whole crew. So I had a little bit of a taste as to what it would be. But the first thing I thought about was, other than the honor and the overwhelm of being in the league, was this is the coolest job anybody could ever have. I mean, seeing this on a nightly basis, the greatest athletes, what they can do on the court. And I'm the way I'm wired, I love having a game every day or getting ready for a game every day. And that's the NBA. You're playing 3 and 4 games a week, which I love. And it was just a dream come true for me, because I love basketball and love the NBA and love broadcasting it on TV. So it was just the the best situation you could have.
Right on, right on.
I gotta say, you are one of my favorite NBA commentators of all
Oh, well,
time.
thank you.
And the
Thank
voice that you have on the Hawks games, I remember 2011 against the Raptors. I think the Hawks beat us 111 to 110. And how your voice was in there, you were just wowed up. You wanted those Raptors to lose, and I think they lost. And the Hawks were just two games back from making the playoffs. 2009 or 2011, I can't remember now. I can't recall. But you
Right.
had a fabulous announcing. You always do, but that was one of my favorite nights as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
So that was
Well,
great.
thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And it really is just a labor of love. I mean, yeah, I remember the quotation from Don Shula, the legendary football coach in the NFL,
Yeah.
with Baltimore and Miami. And his quote was, "The closer I get to the stadium, the faster I walk." And that sums it up for me. I can't wait to get to the arena. I mean, I'm like a fish out of water right now. I'm watching all the playoff games, but it's just I want to be there. I don't want to be here. I mean, I want to be here talking to you guys, but I want to be at the game. I want to be at the arena,
Yeah.
and I love that. I can't now. I'm like, when's the schedule coming out? When's the schedule coming out? Where are we going? Where do we open? Who do we play? Let's go. And I can't wait to get going.
Bob, I have another question. It appears from past history, you started your broadcasting career in 1973 out of WSTP Radio in Salisbury, North Carolina.
Yes.
What sport, if anything, did you prefer, or were you ready for any type of sports commentating ever?
Yeah, well, when you're in a small town like Salisbury, which is basically a wide spot in the road between Charlotte and Greensboro, if you're familiar with North Carolina, you had to do it all. I was working in the studio. I was a full-time college student at the time. You did every game, every sport for all the high schools and the two colleges that we had in town. So you did it all. Football went to basketball, basketball went to baseball, and we had a American Legion team in the summertime, which is basically high school ball for the county kids in the summertime, and had a great Legion team that played for national championships. So we just rolled from one thing to the next, and there really wasn't an off season. But that's just the way I liked it. And then I was on the air 6 days a week doing studio shows, mornings and afternoons. So it was, for me, it was tremendous. And one of the great two things about growing up in Salisbury, really just a gift from God. Number one is that I was a speech major at Catawba, and the head of the department basically taught me. He said, "Bob, we don't get many kids like you. You know exactly what you want to do. So let's cut away all the BS and let's get you a degree in speech that is really going to help you. Voice and diction, debate, thinking on your feet, and, all those types of things helped me so much and really sped up my development as a broadcaster." Now, the other thing that happened in my hometown was the home of the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association. A restaurateur in Salisbury created it, thought it'd be neat to recognize the best sportscaster and sports writer in every state in our country, and the national winners, national sportscaster and sports writer, and they met in Salisbury. It's sort of like why the Baseball Hall of Fame's in Cooperstown, New York. It just happened. And I had a chance when I was 16 and got my driver's license. I would go to the Charlotte airport, and in the back seat of my car were the legends of sportscasting: Kurt Gowdy, Chris Schenkel, Jim McKay, Howard Cosell, all these people in the back seat of my car. And for 45 minutes,
That must be cool.
From the airport to Salisbury, I would ask them, "Hey, I want to do what you do. What advice could you give me?" And they were great. And it's one of the reasons I try to pass it on as much as I can to young broadcasting students who ask, and those that come by the games, to encourage them, because they encouraged me back in the day.
Excellent. And not only did you get to have those interesting commentators right there in your back seat, but you're also an award-winning, or I would like to think you are an award-winning author in a book that you wrote called Fast Forward Winner. I've got to ask that. How did you decide that you were going to write a book one day, Bob?
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy, right? Well, Tino, I'll tell you how it came about. As you're a sportscaster, and I'm sure it's as true in Canada as it is in the U.S., you're asked to MC every award ceremony and every the rubber chicken circuit. You just go around and you're asked because you're the voice of the team or the conference or the league or what have you to go out there and MC these banquets. So I would, and I heard a lot of keynote speakers. And so I thought, well, that may be something that I could develop one day. And the question that I kept getting from students, basically, young people, was, hey, I want to do what you do. Broadcasting is something that interests me. How can I get started? And so I said, well, here's a list of things that I think you should do. And I got asked so often, Tino, that I put it into a book form, which is the Fast Forward Winner. And it's basically nothing more than my story, the steps that I took along the way to get to the outcome at the end. And it's it's more of a workbook than it is, the great American novel. I mean, it's more of a workbook to take 6 steps, 3 where you work on yourself on the inside, and then take that great idea to the outside and do 3 more steps. And, maybe you'll be lucky like I was to turn it into a career. It could be a hobby. It could be anything. It could be a side hustle. It could be anything. But I think if you follow those 6 steps, you won't go wrong, and it'll get you further down the path to see if it's something that you really want to do.
It is the best job in the world, sports broadcasting.
Oh,
it is the best job. You can't get better than putting a suit on.
Come on, Joe. It beats working.
Oh, yeah. 100%. But it's like when you're commentating live on television, giving it your 110%, and people look up to you and people ask you those questions, it must make you feel good deep inside, Bob. It really must make you feel good.
Yeah, it does. And I want to pay it forward like those guys did for me when I was a kid growing up. I think one of the things that I encourage young people that want to get into broadcasting, and I tell them about the NBA, I said, we have 300 employees basically with the Hawks. Only 15 employees are basketball players. We have coaches and scouts and people who sell tickets and premium seating and finance and HR. And the one thing is, all 300 of us, we are all in the NBA. And it's sort of the same thing with broadcasting. A lot of people look at those of us, men and women, who are in front of the camera because that's all really you can see from the outside. But we are just the front people for an army of people behind us, the producers, directors, camera, audio, you name it, graphics, replays, all that goes into a live sportscast. So I encourage young people in broadcasting, it's like going down a buffet line. Try a little bit of this and try a little bit of that. And you may find that you're more drawn to producing. You're more drawn to writing, graphics, rather than being in front of the camera to do play-by-play. So it's a great industry to be in. If you get good at it, you pretty much write your ticket.
For sure.
But it's also a business that it takes a long time to get good at it. I mean, I'm still working at it, and I'm 68 years old. So it's a business where if you get in, it's exciting. You're part of a team, part of a greater the greater good, if you will, of broadcasting that reaches so many people. So I would encourage anybody, if you have any interest in it at all, to get involved and then go to work on yourself and see which specialty applies to you.
You have encouraged me, I'll tell you that's first off. Second of all, I want to become, a Bob Rathbun, but I want to become a Joe Booney. I want to become a person that goes on television and commentates. But again, it takes time. Practice makes perfect, right? It's not like
does.
You sleep.
But I will say this. I will say this, Joe. You and anybody coming along now, you're coming along at a time where it's never been more accessible. Shows like this, I never had any kind of forum like this. All this hadn't been invented yet when I was coming along.
Right.
But now you can. But here's the key for you, Joe and Tino, and those watching who want to get involved in this: have something good to say. It is so easy to get on and not have something good to say. I want to rip this coach or rip this team and all that. That's kind of doing it the hard way. I think what's the most interesting thing about what we do is when we have a player or a coach as a guest to do our homework and ask questions that is going to elicit a response where the listener is going to say, I didn't know that about that person. If you had, let's say Nick Nurse, I know he's no longer the coach of the Raptors, but just to have Nick on. And if you read his book after winning the championship, you found out all kinds of things about his background, where he coached and, coaching in London and coaching in the G League and coming up in Iowa and blah, 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 blah. And ask him something about that to spark a conversation where the listener will say, well, boy, that was really interesting. I know Nick Nurse better now for listening to Joe and Tino than I did before. And that's sort of the goal, I think, of this. I might be a little old-fashioned in that, and I plead guilty. But I would much rather listen to an interview show like that than I would, a couple of guys screaming on television over something that doesn't really matter. That doesn't entertain me. We down here in the States, we get all these, oh my God, all these just scream fests. And it doesn't interest me. It just doesn't.
You don't look at day over 68. That's one thing. My next question to you is,
I think that's a good thing.
It is. What skill do you believe you possess that makes you a great motivational speaker? Because you are.
Well, if I am, thank you. If I am, the good Lord blessed me with enthusiasm and energy. And I think that has probably carried me more than anything else. I've always been someone interested in research and history and stats and the people of the games. I just love it. I love reading books about them and, magazine stories and the internet and all that stuff. So the curiosity factor is probably something that carried me a long way. When I do get a speaking gig, I really do dive into that company. There's some things that I want to share with them from the sports world, but I want to find out about their culture. I want to find out what's going on inside your company. Why do you need me to come in? What's the message that you think your people need to hear, and why? And if I can do a deep dive into that corporation, that company, the message that I end up delivering will be impactful and meaningful to those in the audience. So I would say the energy and the enthusiasm and the curiosity are the three things that I've been really blessed with.
Final question, Bob.
Yes, sir.
What is your greatest accomplishment in life overall?
For me?
For yourself?
Mary Beth and Court and Grace. That, without question. I've won a lot of awards, and I think I'm in 4 halls of fame, 5 halls of fame. It's family and friends. And if I can be a good husband and father and someone in my community that people look to for inspiration, I'm good. I'm good.
Amen to that. Amen. Before I let you go, we got about 5 minutes in. I asked Jack this question about a month and a half ago, and I want to ask you this question.
Uh-huh.
In your eyes, is Michael Jordan better or LeBron James? Because we hear so much speculation going around this. MJ's better, LeBron's better.
Let me answer that by asking you two that question. And I'll couch it to you this way. You're in a pickup game. Okay? There are 2 players left to be picked for your team. The outcome of this game, your life depends on the outcome. Are you picking Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
You go first, Tino.
That's a tough one, Joe. That's a real tough question.
Well, there is no wrong answer.
I don't think there is a wrong answer because they're both great sports figures in their own right. And if I had to pick, I think I'm going to go Michael Jordan.
Joe?
I'm going to go with Michael Jordan, too. I didn't watch Michael Jordan growing up, but just seeing the records that he's done and the points he's done for charity and the thing that he's done for basketball, there's nobody ever like a Michael Jordan. Like Wayne Gretzky. People compare him to Connor. People compare him to Cindy Crosby or McDavid. You can't compare different eras.
Right.
It's impossible to do that. It's like saying
Exactly.
a 2017 Edge or a 2007 Edge. You can't compare those two vehicles. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I do love Edges. That's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same. It cuts across all sports. Is it Rocket Richard or is it Bobby Orr?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way, right? Different times, different eras. But here's the thing about it is when you're forced to choose like that, that is your criteria. There is nowhere is it written in stone somewhere that this is what it takes to be the best of all time. I mean, that just does not exist. So it's all just a matter of personal preference. There's no wrong answer, right? But it's more fodder for sports talk shows than anything else, because how could you not say Bill Russell is not the greatest player of all time? Nobody won 11 rings.
Yeah.
Nobody won an Olympic gold medal. Nobody won 2 NCAA tournaments like Bill Russell did. So why wouldn't he be considered the greatest player of all time? But you see what I mean? It's just a discussion point. He could be your best and favorite, and that's fine. It's just fodder, to talk and be around the water cooler and have fun with it. But gosh, you turn on some of these talk shows and it gets nasty.
Oh, yeah.
And what I don't like is trying to tear somebody down to build up your guy. Whether that's an all-time great or a current player today. There's 2 ways to have the biggest building in town. Either build the biggest building yourself or level everybody else's building. And I prefer to build the tallest building.
I mean,
totally
Tino,
agree.
you have any last words, my friend?
Who's going to win the championship, guys?
I got to say that because you took this with me. I really believe the Lakers. They can finish the quarters.
I think the LA Lakers too, Joe. Yes.
I want them to. Just because of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They started, 2-10, 2-11. They had a play-in tournament, 2 games.
Yep.
And now they're, 1 game away from the conference championships.
Yeah. And the coach is Darvin Ham, who was with us for many years as an assistant. And I absolutely love the guy. He is what he's doing as a first-year head coach in the NBA in that environment with that spotlight, coaching LeBron and Anthony Davis and trying to keep it all together. He has done a masterful job. He's done as good a job as any coach in the league this year. And they were going nowhere until they made those trades at the deadline. If they don't get Vanderbilt and D'Angelo Russell and all those guys that came in the trade, they may not have made the playoffs, not even the play-in tournament. They're going nowhere. But they made those trades. They strengthened the team. And Darvin has gotten them turned around. I like their chances tonight as we get ready for Game 6 in LA. I think they got a great chance to beat Golden State tonight. I'm
going to say 106, 103 the final. LeBron hits the clutcher to win it.
Okay. I go with that.
Yeah, I am. How about you, Tino?
Joe, you know what? I'm not going to guess at anything because every time I guess at something, I usually lose. So I like the number you threw out, and I mean we've been doing that through hockey, and it's incredible some of the numbers that we've come up with, Joe. Our predictions, and I mean I'm not a gambler. I don't like gambling per se. I mean I don't mind it, but if we were and we threw out those numbers at the time that we did throw them out, especially in the last game with I believe it was Toronto and the Panthers going into hockey. It's like, who would have thought? And this is even before they even started, Joe, if you recall.
Yes, I remember
in some of our discussions.
I love hockey, and I broadcast minor league hockey when I was in Virginia and had an absolute blast. And for those in the audience, if I mention the name John Brophy, I think that will resonate with hockey fans. John from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, had a 20-year minor league career as a defenseman, and then a just as long coaching career, coached the Toronto Maple Leafs for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
They go up 3-1 on Detroit years ago. And Brophy leans over the bench and gives it this to Detroit, and the Red Wings come back and beat them in 7 games. But he was as probably I can't imagine there's a player in the history of hockey that had more penalty minutes than John Brophy. He played 24 years. First time I interviewed him, he was the coach of the team I broadcast for, the Hampton Roads Admirals in the East Coast Hockey League. And I said, John, my God, you played 24 years of professional hockey? He said, no, I didn't play 24 years. I said, it says right here, 20. He said, no, I spent 7 years in a penalty box.
Sounds like Ty Domi to me.
Yeah, right. He made Ty Domi look like a Boy Scout.
Yeah. I think I know you're talking about. I'm just trying to remember. That's a long time ago.
John Brophy. Oh my God! But he taught me hockey, and we had an absolute blast with those kids.
Is he currently still living?
No, he passed away a few years ago. But just a legend in the game. I guarantee you, there's somebody listening to this tonight.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere.
There's some Leaf fans that are watching. Listen, Bob, it has been more than a privilege. It's been an honor. Last show I had with you one-on-one a few years ago, that was great, the pandemic. But this one I got to give a +10. And I really, really appreciate that everything you have done for the game and continue on doing this game. And again, I'll repeat myself for the last time. You don't look a day old, over 68 years old.
We got to dial that number back a little bit. So.
Yeah, a little bit down. But I do like to ask you actually just a request.
Sure.
What are the chances, and I know this might be difficult for you, but getting Trae Young on the Joe Sports channel?
All we could do is ask, sometimes he's hard to pin down in the summertime, a little bit easier once we get back to playing and he's around more. But we'll work on that. We'll see if we can get number 11 on here.
Okay. With you too.
Share with the world.
That'd be great.
Yeah. But all right, you guys have to do me a favor.
Yes.
Get the NBA back in Vancouver.
Yes, please.
I know.
Come on.
People are screaming for it. People are asking for it, but it's. I mean, I remember going to an NBA game many years ago, and I'm telling you, it was one of the most exciting games I've ever gone to. And I had floor seats, and I don't know why we took away the NBA from Vancouver. I just don't understand why.
No, you didn't. It's the rules changed, Tino, and they couldn't stop it. The league used to be able to prevent movement of franchises like that, but they couldn't anymore. And, they went to Memphis and Seattle went to Oklahoma City, and there was nothing that David Stern could do about it. I mean, they expanded to Vancouver to be there for the long haul. And we miss it so. We love going. I don't know. What do they call the arena now? It was GM Place.
GM Place, which is now, I think it's Rogers Arena. I think it's Rogers.
Rogers Arena in Vancouver, yeah, where the Canucks play.
Yeah.
Rogers Arena. Rogers.
Like Sky Dome.
Yeah, Sky Dome.
Oh, I think when Bob mentioned GM Place, I think that's BC Place. It used to be BC Place. Then they changed it to GM Place. But Rogers Arena is a new arena, is it not? It's a newer arena than GM Place.
But that's where the Hawks played.
Rogers Arena,
we played it. Yeah, okay. I think it was GM Place when we.
Yes, it was. It was.
Yeah, and we loved it. We loved it. Beautiful city, beautiful people, just great. Loved it. And Memphis to Atlanta is not that far apart. We don't get too excited about going to Memphis. I got to tell you, with all due respect to my friends in Memphis, Tennessee, but we could drive there. We really miss coming because we don't go to Seattle, we don't go to Vancouver. We make that one trip to Portland. I want to go to Seattle and Vancouver.
Yeah, you're not that far off. You're not that far off the mark.
I want to go to Atlanta.
We got to work on that.
I want to go to Atlanta and watch a Hawks game and see Bob Rathbun and meet you.
Come on. Standing invitation.
I would love to. It would be an honor to go down to Atlanta. Never been to Georgia. And meet you, have a lunch with you.
Well, I'll tell you, the wonderful thing about living here is this airport that we have. It's the busiest airport in the world, and you can fly nonstop from anywhere. And I guarantee you, Air Canada comes here. I guarantee you can get a nonstop from Vancouver to Atlanta. Easy flight, right in. You certainly could get a flight from Seattle, if not. But yeah, come on. We'll show you some Southern hospitality.
I'll make a trip. Tina, we got to make a trip. I'm from London, Ontario, so I got to come from Toronto. So Toronto, Pearson to Vancouver, and from Vancouver
to Atlanta.
Let's get a nice 2.5 inch ribeye steak.
There you go.
That would be
Sounds
great.
like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
Well,
Bob,
come on.
Awesome,
guys. Great being with you.
It would be awesome. It'd be awesome. Thank you so much. And Bob, if you ever need anything, my friend, let me know. God bless you. God bless your family. You're a rock star, and you are the future of the NBA.
Many blessings to you, Bob. It was wonderful talking to you. Wonderful to listen to some of your responses. There was a few things that you talked about there that are going to resonate with me in terms of my family and how much we love our family and that we support our family. God bless you on that note, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a joy to be with you. And I will see you guys next at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, GA.
Let's go. Take care, Bob. Bob Rathbun, Atlanta Hawks play-by-play announcer. That was, I got to say, I got a few minutes left because I got some.
What a wonderful human being. What a wonderful human being. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's a gift from God. And
we hear their voices, and when I hear Bob's voice, it's the first time I've ever met him on a podcast. But it's a voice that you don't forget. It's a voice that's very recognizable. And now to hear him, here, it's like I look forward to hearing him again and watching him on his broadcasts. Like I do with Jack Armstrong, I recognize that voice from,
Tino, I gotta say, out of Jack Armstrong and Bob Rathbun, you can't compare. You can't compare. It's like 10 out of 10. You got one guy does the Hawks, and you got one guy does the Raptors, and they're both unbelievable individuals.
Absolutely.
And having a guy that can explain the thing and ask us the question, who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
I know.
It's like, hello.
I'm surprised that he did that. I'm surprised that he did that.
Unbelievable. But I learned a lot. I'll tell you that. I learned a lot, and actually, he's messaging me right now. Let's read this message before we get off air. Bob says, "Thanks so much. That was fun. That was fun that you came on, and
Yeah,
without
for
the
sure,
Bob
Bob.
believers and the Tino D'Antonio believers, this would never have happened. Wallah, believe
Yeah.
me.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome.
Joe, as
You know,
usual, it's always a slice. I mean, I had to rush back, and I'm surprised that I made it because I shouldn't drive like Mario Andretti on the Vancouver streets. And I had my wife with me because she wanted some plants. And I said, okay, well, why don't I get you the plants and then I'm going to go do my things. And that way I can double park somewhere and leave you in the car. And in case you have to move it, you move it. But it helps me get my job done that I had to do. But I'm surprised that, and it's a good thing we hooked up because I got my geographics in terms of time changes. Like I thought it was 10 o'clock tonight, 7 o'clock
I
p.m.
told you it's 7 p.m. Eastern
I
time.
know it was my fault, Joe.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a little older than you, so I should be given some chances.
Hey,
When
Bob
I get
Rathbun,
there.
68 years old, doesn't look like age over 68. Don't give me the excuse. Don't give me the excuse, Mr. Tino D'Antonio from Vancouver.
Well, Bob and I are from the same cloth. I mean, we're in that same era.
Yeah, well,
You're just a young man, and you know what? Bob said some really interesting things, Joe. Like, in terms of wanting to be a broadcaster and wanting to do this kind of work. I'm telling you, and I told you this not too long ago, Joe, you've got it. You're gonna do well in this industry. You just got to stay focused, and you've got to work at it. Like it doesn't happen overnight. And as you bring in guests like Jack Armstrong and Bob Rathbun, uh, I mean, I could say many more that I've witnessed.
Can I pause you for a sec? I had to work my butt off, and I'm talking about day in and day out to get guys like this. It wasn't an overnight thing. So if people think out there that are trying to get into this industry like Bob and trying to be a Bob, it's not an overnight thing. It will take months. It will take moments. It will take years. But eventually, if you know what you're talking about, and if you have that spirit of broadcasting, believe me, I've had people that made fun of me, joked with me. I didn't care about that. I actually liked the attention because at the end of the day, Mr. Joe Booney is being successful and is interviewing guys like Bob Rathbun and Jack Armstrong. And that's a pleasure to have you
For sure.
before and watching this wonderful broadcast.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. You can't. Life doesn't stop because somebody has something negative to say, and it's like Bob mentioned, if you're going to ask questions that brings a negative aspect to the broadcast, it might not necessarily work. It might not go very far. But if you ask the right questions and you get that positive reinforcement, which we got from Bob on a number of questions that he answered. That's what you need, Joe. Those are the kinds of questions you need. And we both, in preparation of some of these, we give ourselves jobs to do, and we do up an itinerary. We go over the itinerary, we have discussions about it. We don't spend days doing it because you don't have to spend days doing it, but it's really been a pleasure to work with you, Joe, as closely as I have over the last two, three broadcasts where we've installed some of these mechanisms behind the scenes to go over. And what makes it even better are the guests. When we're presenting the information and the questionnaires to the guests and they respond the way they do, it's what brings content to the show. So I want to congratulate you on that, Joe, because you're still a young lad. I can't believe how young you are and how ahead of your time you are. And just keep grinding at it, boy. You'll get there. I know you will, sir.
As my wife says, and she's overseas right now, as my wife says, keep believing in yourself, and success will lead into opportunities. Every time
Absolutely.
my wife says that. And you know what? When you're 23 years old and when you're broadcasting guys like Bob Rathbun, and that you're married, and that you have things in life sometimes that might put you down, things like this will always lead to success. And you know what? Sometimes in life, I have these challenges. Like I told my mother the other day, one of my biggest challenges is, if people start talking about other people, I can't stand that. Now, Bob was saying today that it's not good to do, the or you want to start yelling or screaming. It's not good because that's will lead you to unsuccess. So
Absolutely.
knowing guys that I've listened to over the years and hearing on tonight's beautiful broadcast on Joe's Sports Show and Joe Booney, that's something that I'll learn for many years and I'll get better as a broadcaster, you know?
Absolutely, Joe. Just stay focused, son.
Thank you. I'll see you later. Take care. God bless. Tino D'Antonio, Joe Booney, we're out, and God bless. Go